Hello, welcome to Post Colonial Space. I'm Masood Raja, and this video is in my public commentaries or social commentaries playlist called Raja Against the Machine. And today I briefly want to talk about the recent decision by the courts to stop Trump administration's cutting of the food stamp program, which would have affected about 700,000 people in the United States, including children, and would have stopped their access to the food stamp program while they are in a pandemic. Now, I'm not a journalist, so I'm not going to mobilize facts to prove a point. What I want to suggest is that behind such steps, this step, and I also briefly would talk about the withdrawal from the WHO, is a certain political philosophy which is racialized, right? And the actions such as these are geared towards nothing. There is no economic reason behind them, but the reason is cynically, deeply political. Now, we already know that food stamps program in United States, especially in the right-wing circles, have been politicized to a point where they always assume that it's racial minorities who access them. And part of it could be true because most minorities tend to not have access to the wealth of the nation and hence fall below a certain level of income and all. But since Trump has racialized that by issuing such a policy while people are going through a pandemic, enables him to again convince his base that, look, I am trying to stop people from being grifters or moochers. These are the vocabularies that he uses. So if we look at the way Trump administration and Trump himself looks at United States of America and at certain minority and other groups, we can absolutely understand that this step, this change in policy to link access to the food stamp program with work, if we understand it within the context of Trump's racialized view, and so his followers' racialized view of state welfare or federal welfare, then it makes perfect sense. Well, otherwise, if you're a rational person, why would you connect food stamp program, which is exceptionally important for so many children, to work in an environment where people are already losing their job, right? So that is cynical as it sounds, but philosophically speaking, if you look at it within the deep structure of how Trump and the right-wing conservatives think about race, it makes perfect sense, even though it's a disastrous thing for so many people who are struggling. The other subtopic, slightly related, was when Mr. Trump withdrew from WHO. I mean, if America claims to be the world leader, right, why would a United States administration pull out of WHO, World Health Organization, in the middle of a pandemic? Why wouldn't America go in and say, let us help or let us lead WHO? Now, that was another conservative dog whistle because it sent a message to his constituents, first of all, that I don't take this pandemic seriously, it's a hoax, that's what he was saying. And two, I don't take dictation from anyone else. So in both these instances, the policies and the changes that are being made or were made by this administration probably have nothing to do with actual impact on the economy or care of people, right? All they do in an election year is to enable Mr. Trump and his ilk, right, to send these coded messages to their constituents that, look, we are going to cut out these people and we are not going to listen to global organizations, United Nations organizations, especially when they are trying to tell us how to do things because we know better. And that is the entire philosophy, if you could call it so, upon which the Trump presidency is built, right? So I thought I should add my opinions because, I'm grateful that the court stopped it. But the fight is not over yet, of course, right? But thankfully, those 700,000 people would not immediately lose their food aid benefits in the middle of the pandemic. And that leads us to another question. I mean, what kind of a national leader would take a step like this when people are already struggling? When, according to the words of the judge, there is, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, that children could actually starve, right? Who does that, right? Only a person who has no empathy and who is absolutely focused on retaining his base because he thinks that if he can retain his base, what can he do? He can win another 4 years as the president of the United States. So that is the sad state of affair, right? But at least we can celebrate momentarily that the courts struck down that change in the rules and that at least 700,000 of our brothers and sisters and their children will be able to access the little help that the federal government can give them while they get through this pandemic, while they get through these terrible times, and enables them to take care of their families. And I think there is a lot to be said about these things, and that we should be thinking about things despite our politics, wherever we might stand, that any policy that is cynical and that actually goes and hurts people in America, no matter what our politics is, we should speak against it, and we should never quietly accept it because it might be in the political interest of our political party. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for listening to me. Please do leave me any comments that you might have about this, any thoughts that you might have about this, and please do remember that these videos, which are my political commentaries, they always start with a different opening credit, which is the opening credit of this playlist, Raja Against the Machine. And if you're not interested in my political commentaries and are only interested in my educational materials, you don't have to watch these. But if I could have your support in these social and political commentary videos as well, as always, I'll be deeply grateful. Thank you so much. And as always, peace and love.